in life and business to inspire you to explore your passions and challenge the status quo. You know, one of the biggest downfalls of the 5 o'clock hustler is time. We each at least work 40 hours a week, putting food on the table, and the balance is left for exploring our passions and starting businesses and making an impact in our lives as well as others. There's something that doesn't often get talked about in our world, and that's sleep. Our passions can certainly drive us through ungodly hours of the night, but lack of sleep can do a lot more harm than good. And we had the perfect guest to tell us why we need to get better sleep. On this week's episode, we have Julian Hayes II. He is the founder of theartoffitnessandlife.com and author of Body Architect. Julian's a major fitness advocate whose articles appear in several big-time publications such as The Huffington Post, bodybuilding.com, Entrepreneur, and you can follow his weekly column at inc.com. In this episode, we dive into how to become a better performer by dialing in our sleep, fitness, and nutrition routines, but we also talk about what inspired Julian to start his business and how he got where he is today. Spoiler alert, he didn't always look like he was recently cast in an Avengers movie. Now be sure to check out the episode notes after you're done listening because Julian left us with some amazing resources, including his articles, as well as a free guide that he coined the 10 Commandments to Limitless Energy, and I think we all need that. Now don't fall asleep just yet, guys. We're about to get the show started, and you need to learn how to improve your REM cycles first anyway. So just remember, everybody, leave us a review on iTunes, subscribe to our newsletter at 5o'clockhustle.com. Okay, sweet dreams, everybody. Keep hustling, and Dre, start the show. It's the 5 o'clock hustle podcast. Come on, Dre. Start the show. This is really awkward. 5 o'clock hustle.
5 o'clock hustle, bro.
5 o'clock, 5 to 8, 5 to 12, 5 to 3 until you get back up the next morning, man.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock. I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock. Thus, the side hustle was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast. Man, they're having so much fun.
And again, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for actually. We're already live.
We're giving thumbs up around just to make sure that
we're. Oh, I don't know if there's a SD card in there, so we're doing it live right here.
Boom,
throwing it down.
Boom.
But anyways, thanks for coming on. I know it's late over in Nashville. Speaking about music, and that was kind of funny because a lot of the content that you put out has to do with sleep. And I was like, oh no, we're kind of throwing a late recording for this guy. but thanks for coming on the show. Seriously, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I'm not really like ultra like rigid. Like I'm not really that rigid with it.
Okay.
You know, you got to enjoy life.
Sure.
We appreciate that.
I still like to go out a little bit, have fun and stuff. So it's not just like, you know, I need to make sure I optimize my sleep cycles and blah 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 blah. You know?
Yeah. It's funny because I read a lot about this kind of stuff, about all the setting your circadian rhythm and doing these things, but I usually end up falling off the wagon after trying to implement a lot of those things.
I'm giving you this look because you never even try to be on the wagon. Like, you sleep such small amounts, and we were just talking about. So Chris is doing something to where he wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And then we were just talking about it, and I talked to you 2 days ago. You sounded like you were crazy at night. And then you're just saying how he wants to cut out more sleep to get more done. I know it was a personal conversation, but I'm just throwing him under the bus right here. So you need to get on the wagon, the sleep wagon, because I've been trying to push it for a minute.
Well, just so to get the audience on board, Julian, Why don't we kind of go through a little bit about what it is that you do, and maybe a little bit of background on how you actually got into doing it in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the background. So I'll go back to teenager Julian, and teenager Julian he plays sports a little bit. He's pretty decent. He doesn't really work out a lot. So every time he drives to the basket, he gets knocked down a lot. I accumulated a lot of bruises in my life, and I was into comics, so I was a nerd before it was cool, before all this Marvel madness.
Nice.
I was a huge Black Panther fan before people even knew who he was. Um, so I go to college, and in college, you want to impress women, and you need confidence for that. Neither of those I had. So that led me to the weight room, and I drew my inspiration from wanting to look like a superhero. I fall in love with the sciences, and I end up going to medical school in New York. I go there for a year. The thing is, New York is crazy compared to Nashville, Tennessee. It's a lot more liberal, to say the least. And so I meet some interesting people who are doing some very cool jobs, and I start questioning everything about life. And I come back home that summer, and I literally just wake up one night and decide that I'm not going back to school, that I'm going to combine all my passions together and make a go at this thing called business. And I probably the first 10 people I told, they thought I was either drunk or on drugs or like some kind of voodoo spell that happened in New York or something. So safe to say, it wasn't the most popular answer.
Were you on any of those? Okay.
No,
good,
I
good.
wasn't. I did,
College is a crazy time. You never know.
I did party a lot in New York. So I made up for a lot of lost time. So I did party in New York a little bit, to say the least. It was very fun. I wish I could handle that kind of lifestyle still, but unfortunately I can't. I think like after 25, you just lose that ability to be able to like function after a night out. Like it takes me, if I go out, which it's been a long time, I usually have to block out the next 48 hours to recover.
Right? Okay, let's just touch on that. I know this I know this is a business podcast, but I find myself more and more depressed because it's like I used to have a morning hangover. Now I have to plot out half of my week and how I'm going to get through like lie, cheat, steal through success, like to make people think that I'm still performing at a deep level because I can't do anything for, 72 hours?
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. The thing was like, I think the last time I had like any kind of beverage was I was in Portugal, and I had 2 glasses of wine, and I was done just off 2 glasses of wine. I mean, I'm happy that it was very cheap. I'm glad for that because there was a point in time in college where, it was very expensive to say the least.
Sure.
But the thing is though, like the next day, for half the day or so, I'm just like, oh, I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how your body doesn't recover as well from that.
Well, Dean was mentioning how like I wake up really early in the morning, and now whenever I end up having a drink, I'm always like thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna be able to do the things that I want to do if I have a drink. So I kind of have to plan ahead of time, like Dean was saying.
For me lately, like if I have a glass of wine or 2 before bed, like it's harder for me to sleep. Like it doesn't. It has the opposite effect on what most people. They're like, oh yeah, just to have a nightcap. I'm like, no, I have this wine. I'm up. So I better have something.
I'm gonna go party right now.
Yeah. A lot of people, sometimes think that alcohol actually helps them sleep. And the thing is, you don't notice it, but your sleep is very like fragmented when you're going to sleep after some drinks. You don't fall into as deep of a sleep. So the quality that you're getting is very low. It's like junk food. It's junk food sleep.
Yeah. So we kind of jumped the gun a little bit, going into back into some of the stuff that you're kind of an expert in. But let's dial back again a little bit and talk about the business aspects, and that I guess the journey of starting your business.
Yeah. So like I said, after I left school and everything, it's I thought it was just going to be easy. Like, I thought it was one of those like follow your passions and it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
And it was a rude awakening to say the least. And so I thought, hey, I was literally thinking, hey, I know a lot of stuff, guys. So just come over here because I know a lot of stuff. And it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And so I had to really learn how to write to even get to any of these publications that I write for. And so that was kind of tough. So I pretty much had, I think it was around 15 months of like no traction at all. And so luckily my best friend he helped me edit at the beginning because I was really terrible at writing,
Sure.
like awful. And so luckily I had him to keep improving. And that's kind of one of the main lessons I learned is about just doing the habit and sticking with it and being persistent. And then over time, you're going to get better at that skill.
Repetition.
And so,
Yeah.
yes, repetition is huge. And so at the beginning, I didn't even worry about like it being top quality. I just needed to get in the habit of doing that. And then eventually over time, my skill level is going to go higher and higher and higher.
For sure.
So that's super interesting because when I saw because you reached out to us through our website and thank you so much for doing that. But I started to look through all your material and I was like, holy crap, this guy's on a lot of stuff. So it's just really interesting to hear that you weren't a great writer in the beginning, but you are in publications like at least weekly. It looks like you have some new content out. So
Yeah.
That's really cool. When was the actual first time that you kind of broke through with your writing?
Probably, let's see. So probably a few years ago. So I want to say maybe 3 to 4 years ago. I kind of forgot, but I remember it was with my local newspaper in town.
Interesting.
And so yeah, I walked in and just said, "Hey, I noticed you guys don't really have local voices for your fitness content. I would like to write something. I think I have some valuable stuff." And they're like, "Okay." And so that's how I got the opportunity. And so I wrote some local newspaper columns. And then I started with places like Lifehack and a few smaller other ones. And then I just started pitching places, and eventually they were going to say yes because I studied the places that I wanted to write to.
Sure.
And I also learned how to actually write for like the general public. So at the beginning, I was writing a lot of scientific jargon. So I was writing to like other fitness people,
Sure.
whereas like I needed to pretend like I was writing to my mom and make it that simple. Because I think like the average person maybe reads on like a 6th or 7th grade level. That sounds terrible, but
Sure.
it's something like that though. So I
We're looking at each other like, damn, that sounds pretty right on.
But yeah, so I needed to learn how to like explain things in a very basic way without a bunch of research and scientific jargon, but have that if necessary. But the average person really doesn't care about that.
For sure.
So, so I had to like, there's a lot of psychology too. And just a lot of failing and long nights, long mornings.
Yeah. Was there any parallels to that with because you said that, when you were just getting into fitness yourself, when you were a teenager, was there like some of those lessons that you learned in terms of like, I guess repetition is a major one. Was there any parallels there for you?
Yeah, it was a lot. And the funny thing is with fitness is like, I can look back on like my life now and over the 10 plus years, and there's distinct phases. Like the phase I'm in now, fitness is a lot different for me. The challenges are a lot different compared to when I first started early in college, where the main thing in college was just showing up and just stuffing my face. Cause I went to college, I was 165 pounds. So I was lanky. So sure. I just needed to eat a lot, like a lot. So, and
how tall are you?
Go to the gym. I'm 5'11".
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I just needed to eat a lot and just get to the gym and work out. And so that skill though, like realizing that I could gain 30 pounds, and completely transform my body. That does give you a confidence. That's why I think no matter what you're doing in life, I really think having some kind of physical practice is a really good life skill to have, because you're going to learn about marginal gains, because you don't go in the gym and just get these huge benefits on like from Tuesday to Thursday. It's very incremental over time, and you learn what it means, and it teaches you discipline, which is transferable to any other area of your life and business.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's huge. One of the things that you just brought up throughout probably over the last 5 minutes in total was this debate that I always like to have. And it's whether confident people take action or actions create confidence. And it sounds like you would subscribe to the latter.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like I'm luckily getting to meet people who I think are light years ahead of me. And I was shocked by, I guess we all fall into this, that we think there's some magic answer, this one thing that we're missing that's going to take us to the next level. And it's really not that. Like these people oftentimes are scared because they're getting out of their comfort zone to try to grow. But the confidence is birthed through the doing of that action or habit that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is that kind of what drove you to do what you're doing now? Is you started working out and you started seeing changes within yourself, and maybe was there like some influential people that imparted some wisdom on you, and then you wanted to return that favor to other people, or how did that come about? Like you doing what you're doing now.
So I guess my thing with my fascination with health was that being African American, they're statistically unhealthier than others. And I saw around my general environment of how people just accepted that as they got older that they were going to have all these aches and pains, or they have diabetes now, or they have blood problems or heart problems, and then people are getting cancer and all that. But then on the other side, I was exposed to people who had this great health as they were aging. And that's where I was like, okay, wait a minute, something's not right here. You got one side that's just accepting that these things are just a part of life, and then this other side that doesn't do that. And so it's just a belief system. And so it was that exposure that really showed that, oh, I can control my life a lot more. And I almost felt like I'm into superheroes. And so it's almost like my superpower is to try to bring people good health, bring people energy so they can go and share their superpower with someone else. And so it's just like a compounding effect with that.
That's awesome. Who's your favorite superhero?
Oh man. So it's a combination. So it's Black Panther because he's the richest superhero. He's smart, and he's just generally cool. He's very sophisticated. And then there's also symbiote Spider-Man. So it's like Spider-Man with an edge. And so he's a little more bulkier. So because the regular Spider-Man is he's a little lanky, so I can relate to him. But then the symbiote Spider-Man with the black outfit on in the comics, and then the cartoon, he's a little more jacked. And I was like, that's the Spider-Man I like.
It's like Julian 2.0, just ready to
Exactly.
go.
Yeah.
The second, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I go by the second, but I hate Junior. Like I almost started like going on a tirade right now. Like the word Junior.
Hey, Junior.
Yeah. Like no. Somebody said that like, hey, like Junior or little Julian, and like that shit irritates me. Like when I was a kid.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that me myself being an African American as well. I think that that's an important point that you hit with, just as far as the African American community, not necessarily. I mean, now things are a lot more readily available, and you can go Google anything. But I just remember coming up. I lived in Houston, Texas.
Oh yeah, so you're similar.
And so the obesity issue and diabetes and everything like that. I mean, and it's a problem all over America, but most, for me, just my exposure, we just didn't have, like you said, the exposure nor the resources to understand, like basically we grew up thinking that the standard food chart was the way to go, and there's certain things that have changed now where, you may need to eat differently, or you may need to, our thing with sports, like if you're playing sports, then you're staying fit, but there's more of a science behind, keeping your body in shape. And I'm sure that with all the hormonal, issues that people are having now that's causing weight and everything. And it's a lot more to it than just eat what's on the food chart and play a sport, but that's what was driven into it, especially in Texas. They're like, you play football, you eat cornbread and beef and maybe a little bit of greens
Yeah.
here, but that's it.
Yeah, my pregame meal for basketball games was I think it's the number 5 at McDonald's. So it's a 20-piece nugget and supersized fries and a sweet tea.
Yes, sir. You get a quarter pounder with cheese to back in.
That reminds me of the reading all those stories about Michael Phelps and how he used to down like 30 like Big Macs before like a workout, before or after a workout, and I was like, what? How? Why would you do
You
that?
should know you will have zero bowel movement problems.
Yeah.
You'll be clean and ready to go.
Yeah, those are some. Yeah,
All right, so-
I remember those. Very nasty. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I'm not going to expand on that part. So we got your upbringing. We got a feel for your some of your drivers and motivators. Explain to our audience what you would say that you do. Like, what is your profession?
Yeah, so I guess if you wanted to be formal, it would be an author and a sleep and nutrition consultant. And so
Okay.
the mission is just helping high performers, people who want to perform at a high level, to help them create more energy so they can move along at a faster pace and basically operate with an edge over the competition in life.
Sure. And that's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, do you find that you do that mostly with individuals or with organizations on a larger scale?
Yeah, so I started with individuals, and now I'm slowly moving to the consulting world. So where I'm going into companies and giving trainings on sleep and performance and mindset and nutrition. Those are kind of my 3 big areas. So yeah, I am moving more into that because companies want to find a way to create better leaders, improve employees' productivity and performance and engagement. And I go at that angle. That's my mission, to do that. But I come from it talking about sleep and nutrition.
Understood. That's incredible.
Absolutely. So I guess since, for the most part, our listeners are people who are looking to either start businesses or they want help, building up their own businesses. So they're kind of the people that you're referring to, really. So if we're going to start diving into some of your content and some of like your kind of your larger, broader messages. Why did I move my mic like that? That was weird. But in terms of like your core messaging, what are the most important aspects that do help business people and entrepreneurs and high achievers and type A people live a healthy lifestyle and have the energy to do the things that they want to do?
Maybe some teasers.
Yeah. So
or just all of it,
Yeah. Yeah. So I pretty much break it down to like, the first understanding is that you have to understand that energy is your most valuable currency. So that's the overall thing. And then I break that down into basically 6 pillars of our life, which is our mindset, our relationships, our mission, which some people will call a purpose, our performance, our physiology, and then your presentation, basically your appearance and your posture and how you present yourself to people. And
we just all set up really straight.
Yeah, so those things, your energy can easily be drained, or you can give off a lot of energy, depending on how you structure those things in your life, and they look different for all of us. And so that's where we all kind of have to put our detective's hat on and figure out how we can, for instance, like in our relationships, look at the relationships we have in our lives and see which ones are kind of adding value and which ones are not. And, ones that are not adding value, you don't have to necessarily get rid of those people, but you can just like edit the relationship a little bit and maybe set some boundaries.
Absolutely. So I was looking through an article that you wrote it was probably a little while back, and maybe a month ago, maybe earlier than this month. But you were talking about a lot of type A people, a lot of high achievers do not have good health practices. Why do you think that is?
The type A people? Yeah. So a lot of times they, I remember I wrote that, and I remember number 1 was like the all-in-one mentality. And so in business, a lot of times it's good to have that all-in-one mentality because you're really going after something, but fitness doesn't work like business. And so a lot of times when you strive for perfection in fitness, you end up with something that's overly restrictive, and that doesn't lead to long-term success, most likely, because you're going to slip up eventually. And
Sure.
so with that kind of mentality, if you make one slip up, you kind of feel like a failure. And I remember back in college when this happened. And so I unexpectedly maybe would go off my meal plan at lunch. And I just feel like the day's ruined. And I was like, damn, I messed up. So this day's over. So I might as well just do whatever. And so I just eat whatever and binge the rest of the day, because I felt like a failure because I messed up already. And I did that with a lot of things in life. So if I didn't work out on Tuesday like I was supposed to, then I felt like a failure, even though I can just like do it on Wednesday instead, you know? And so it's just being easy and not just having this perfectionist mentality. And
Yeah, it's certainly a hard spot for a lot of people who are starting businesses. Even for myself, like I'm also like trying to like write a book right now, and the reason why I'm really waking up so early in the morning is because I'm a 9 to 5, or I have a regular job. When am I going to find time to write this book and do all the research and like find people to interview to kind of back up some of the stuff that I'm talking about, and then after that going home to my family and throwing in fitness in between there somewhere. It's hard not to grab onto that one thing that you are really kind of gunning for and really passionate about in the moment. And I think that's a really tough spot for those the high achievers that you're referring to that are having problems with their fitness.
yeah, and then sometimes they'll try to just work harder because they think hard work solves everything, and so they just keep trying to run into the brick wall. Chris. and it's not getting them anywhere. And so this is where you I think Jeff Bezos says this, and I love it. And it's like, let's see, what is it called? I think he's saying be rigid with your vision and flexible with your details, or something like that. So it's basically keep your goal in mind. Don't give up your goal. What do you want to, or whatever you're going after, but just be open to new ideas and new ways to get there, and be okay with pivoting. A lot of times people latch on to some particular type of diet because they've seen other people that it's worked for. And they get very tunnel vision with it, even though all the evidence is mounting that this isn't for them. It's not for their lifestyle. The relationships, it's causing conflict with their relationships because everyone's eating a different way, but they think they have to stay with this because it's popular or other people are doing it.
So one of the things that I think that a lot of our listeners might wonder, and actually I'm curious about, is how did you become an expert in this area? I mean, was it your schooling, or is it just consistent learning? Because, that's one of the things that advice that a lot of leaders and a lot of greats give is, if you want people to follow you, be an expert, be the expert at your industry, at your category. So how did you achieve that? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Curiosity, really. It was curiosity. I took some certifications, but those things are kind of a joke. In all honesty, not to offend people that have them. Yeah. But it's very generic information. And so, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I see where I was struggling, especially recently. So when I first started with fitness, I didn't really care about sleep that much. I was like, whatever, because I'm 20 years old. My hormones are going crazy. And so, when you're 20 years old and you're a guy, you can pretty much get away with anything. You're pretty much the closest thing to invincible at that time in terms of like how you can treat your body and everything. But as I started to build my writing practice, coaching practice, and business up, fitness is a little harder now. I'm not going to lose this. I'm not going to lose fat as quick. I'm not building as muscle as quick, and I'm not as sharp when I notice that I don't rest. And so that's when I was like, oh, okay, maybe this sleep thing's important. And so I become fascinated with it and just read a bunch of books, studied a bunch of different coaches. And it's crazy how sleep is a facet of every part of our lives. And that just made me very curious about it because there's a lot of unknowns about it also. And so that's what I really like, that there's not this definite answer yet. Like every day there's new research coming out that is people are discovering. And so I just think it's something cool. It's basically like an undiscovered land that is just now getting its much due spotlight. And I also, most fitness people are not going to lead with recovery and recharging and sleep. They're most likely going to talk about macros or a meal plan or something. So it's also a way to differentiate myself also.
Cool.
So for our listeners, like Chris has alluded to, we're the 5 o'clock hustle. Most of our listeners have a 9 to 5, and they're trying to fit in their passion from 5 o'clock to,
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Fitness is something that everybody's always trying to squeeze in, and like I said, I'm from the South, and one of the big things that I always heard growing up, and even still there, it's the sleep is for suckers. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Sleep is the cousin of death, like all this stuff like that. For the people who are, running and gunning, working their 9 to 5s, trying to get their dreams off of the ground, they see it in sight, but they're in that mentality, like where sleep is for suckers, things like that. What is the importance of sleep, and how, can not having that sleep is for suckers mentality really benefit you in actually reaching your goals a little quicker?
Yeah. So when I look at sleep, it's basically nutrition for your brain. It's looking at it from, let's start with maybe a body fat perspective. So I remember this one study I saw. And so both groups, same type of diet, same workout plan. The only difference was one group was sleeping around 8 hours. The other group was sleeping around 5 hours. And the group that slept 8 hours lost dramatically more body fat and retained much more muscle. The group that slept 5 hours lost weight still, but a lot of it was muscle, which in the long term is not good for your overall health. When it comes to decision making, I like to think of this study that I also saw where one group was sleeping 6 hours consecutively for 2 weeks compared to the other group that was sleeping around 7.5 to 8. And the group that slept 6 hours after 2 weeks had the same basically cognitive functioning at that time as someone who just pulled an overnighter. So it's just something that affects you incrementally. So it's like almost like death by 1,000 cuts. Now you don't, now you don't have to become a sleep Nazi. And the way I really look at sleep is, and I learned this from another coach, is not necessarily just worry about you have to get your 8 hours a night. The 8 hours is a myth. I basically look at sleep in cycles. So a sleep cycle is 90 minutes. And the goal is to get around 35 sleep cycles a week. And so I try to get 5 a night. So that's 7.5 hours. Now things come up. And so I'll go down to maybe 6 hours and then try to make up that extra cycle somewhere in the week, or I'll take a nap or something. So that's what I do. And, just being honest, there are times where you're not going to be able to get the optimal amount of sleep because you are in that stage. I mean, I was in that stage at some point, but I will say I definitely felt the effects though. And my fitness wasn't as good as that at that time. And so if that's the case, you have to look at everything in life as a stressor. Your working out is a stressor. Your job is a stressor. Your relationships can bring stress. So you have to.
Preach.
So you, and so in those situations, when you got a lot of shit going on, I recommend people do not go crazy in the gym and just try to worry about setting PRs. In fact, I remember an accountant I was training, and it was during busy season, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was I reduced her workload. She worked out maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and we modified her diet a little bit as well, because you also have to realize when you're not sleeping as well, your insulin sensitivity is not going to be as efficiently as well. So if you're eating like you are doing your CrossFit workouts like normal, but now you're a little more sedentary and you got a little more stress going on and you're not sleeping as well, then that's going to cause some extra weight gain. So if you're going to skip on sleep, you have to be very mindful of like your nutrition and your working out as well, because you're not effectively recovering from your training sessions. And yeah, hopefully that made a little sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And actually it's enlightening. It is definitely a lot to digest, because I think we're fed a lot of what people would generally call truths about sleep. So one that I've heard a lot that I'd like to hear you dispel is you can, I mean, kind of like sleep training yourself to require less hours.
Yeah.
Is that just the craziest thing in the world? I mean, is there any validation to it? Or
from what I've seen, there are short sleepers in the world, but it's maybe like 1%, and it's having a particular gene. So the likelihood of having that is very low. So in that instance, the human body is fascinating. So your human body can adapt to anything. Think about, crazy all-nighters that people pull, or think about crazy binges that people pull going out to clubs and stuff, and think about how your body recovers from that eventually. So your body will recover from this lack of sleep, but it doesn't mean that you're in your most optimal state. So you're existing, but you're not close to thriving or being at an optimal level. So that's the key difference there. And, over time, not to scare people, but, one of the big things with Alzheimer's, which is on the rise now, is, we're sleeping 90 minutes less on average than we did 100 years ago. And it's no coincidence that like obesity and Alzheimer's is going up as well, because sleep plays a big part in those two things. Because when you're sleeping at night, your brain is essentially flushing out little plaques that are accumulated throughout the day. But these plaques, when they're not flushed out, build up over time. And that's one of the things that leads to Alzheimer's. Now, you're not going to get Alzheimer's in a week, so don't be scared about that. But that's just, some correlations that people are finding now.
That's really fascinating. Now, this might be because, like we were saying before, I've kind of started waking up really, really early so I can get more done in the morning, because I found that that's really the only time that I have when I can actually work on my book. Is it possible, because I reduced my stress throughout the day from trying to pack in more activities and more things, that I'm getting a better quality of sleep, even though it's in a shortened period of time? Therefore, I could have enough more energy in that circumstance.
So what you're saying is like maybe you're getting 6 hours now of sleep instead of maybe like 8, but you feel better?
Yes.
Okay. In those instances, I'm not so sure. Maybe what's happening is that you're just more in alignment with your circadian rhythm. So maybe you're naturally a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might just be naturally a morning person, and that's better for you. And sometimes, the reason also why we look at 90 minutes is because 90 minutes is a full cycle. And so you kind of want to wake up right at the end of your sleep cycle instead of right in the middle of it, where you're going to be a little more groggy. So that could also be the case as well.
What about for people with newborn babies? I'm struggling with that.
Oh, jeez. Man, that's a tough one.
Just screwed. You're just screwed.
Just give up.
Just try getting a 3, I guess.
Well, mine's about 18 months now, and talk about sleep. She wakes up probably every 45 minutes on a good day.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I'm not a parent. But
we'll get to that one.
But from people, but from people I talk to, that's kind of the things where that's kind of like unavoidable. Like I think for that period, you're kind of going to lose some sleep, to say the least.
Yeah. It's tough because how you're just emphasizing how important it is, and it's something that I'm just like trying to get her to do myself, and like sometimes you feel like you're failing as a parent because you can't get your kid to recover that they need to after a crazy day of like being introduced to so many new things constantly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And a lot of times also you don't want people you don't need to freak out about like a couple bad nights of sleep. I still have bad nights of sleep. Like like if I'm getting ready to speak or something like that, I can be anxious and just have a bad night of sleep as well. So this is like a
It's more Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve for me. I know, like, Santa.
yeah. So it's a continual practice. It's a lifelong practice that you just keep evolving with and practicing. So it's when you
So what
were you gonna say?
Sorry. I was just gonna say So what's your typical day like?
Yeah, for me, so I'm back home right now, and one of my parents is a little sick right now. So I'm helping around and going back and forth to the hospital. So I normally wake up early anyway. So I'm waking up around 4:30 to 5 normally. I like waking up. I might sleep in a little tomorrow to about 6 or 6:15 maybe. And I like to hydrate first thing because we're dehydrated when we're waking up. And then the night before already have laid out what I'm going to do for the day, what my big milestones to hit that I want to do today. And I'll do a little work, a little studying, and then I'll try to get some activity in, which is like a workout or something mid-morning, because I prefer to work out earlier if at all possible, just because it helps with my sleep at night. And it goes along with my day. It's kind of like my halftime. So in the morning is creative work, and then halftime comes up, which is working out. And then the next part of the day is just like admin stuff or calls or any other type of stuff.
Going on a podcast.
Yes.
So with the milestones, I mean, that's pretty neat. I've actually heard that from a lot of different like thought leaders and people that are just influential, that they kind of lay out their goals for the next day the night before. Like, where did you learn to do that, and how, like, what are some of the ways that you feel like you accomplished that?
Well, I noticed beforehand that I was going to bed very anxious, and I pretty much called it I wasn't settling the conflict. Like, I had all this uneasiness about life and like what I needed to do tomorrow, what I didn't do today. And so this really started as a way to kind of calm me down, because I can get very anxious very easily. So that's why I like structure, because it makes me feel comfortable and at ease. And I read random books of like billionaires and stuff, and they seem to be very organized. So I was like, I need to do what those people are doing, because they're onto something. So they plan their week. I'm going to learn how to plan my week. And so it's better that way too, because I can get very distracted easily. And next thing I know, I haven't accomplished anything in the day. And then it comes nighttime and I feel like a failure. I'm like, man, I didn't get anything done today. I didn't. And so I almost feel a little shame. And so it still happens sometimes, and then I write my lessons about what I need to do to improve on that. But it's just a way to keep me in a more higher performing state and focus, because when you're building a business, which I'm still in that stage, so I'm learning so much each day. It's that there's a lot of things that we can do, and we can pretend and tell ourselves that it's work, when it's really not moving the needle forward on what we really need to do. And so for me, I made a conscious, at first I was really trying to do all this stuff on social media, but I didn't really need to be doing that. I really needed to focus on getting better at writing, focus on making relationships and meeting people and getting better at my actual craft of coaching. And so I needed to be studying more, not just like doing tweets and all this Facebook stuff. I still do it from time to time, but at the stage I'm in right now, I need to hone in on my craft more.
Sure. Yeah, that's we're kind of in the same boat when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and I know that all of our listeners are in the same boat.
A wise man once said, "It's not about what you do in the 2%."
Yeah.
98%.
Yeah.
He's talking about one of our recent podcasts. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's almost like we need to, like, when they're like, when those people or those influential people are giving advice, we actually need to just follow that advice and not just hang out on social listening to them, but we actually just need to take that advice and then turn off all that stuff and then get to work implementing it.
Yeah, that's something that we wrote about actually in one of our intros, was the fact that we don't want people to look at this podcast or things that, you, Julian, things that you say as quotes. Like, we've become accustomed in our era to look at inspirational items as quotes that we can just look at and think they're interesting and then discard.
Yeah.
Without ever taking the time to internalize them or put them into action. It's the craziest thing, but like, just like you're saying, like, take these pieces of wisdom and actually put them to work for you and make them meaningful as they are and as they have been. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's easy. It's actually, like, I forgot, like, someone told me, I was like, they're like, really building your business, succeeding and having it all is actually really easy when you learn to get out of your way. And I was like, okay, whatever that means. And it's I was like,
I'm gonna go back to my workout.
Yeah. but I guess what they're saying is, like, we kind of overcomplicate things now, and it's like really easy to do that now because we have all these resources pulling at us. We have hundreds of articles, new articles each and every day telling us 5 tips to improve your productivity, 5 tips to improve your sleep. Then there's another article tomorrow that's coming about sleep, and then there's another article that's going against this thing about sleep. So it's really just about picking something, being like a scientist, and just experimenting and testing that. And then if that doesn't work, then go back to the drawing board. But really giving things a chance to work after you pick something.
I completely agree with that. And especially in the beginning, because it's like in the beginning of doing anything is the time to make mistakes. And it's okay to kind of choose the things that might not pan out because the stakes aren't as high. You're still trying to, like, like you said, like, hone your craft and like really like become the best version of whatever it is you're trying to do. And whether that's in actually implementing it into your business or your health or anywhere else in your life, it's important to, like you say, like test as much stuff as you can, because like there's not a whole lot you have to lose, especially if you don't have a whole lot invested in the first place.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I didn't get into like any of these places at the beginning, because initially I was mad. I was like, why is no one responding? And I'm really thankful because I kind of sucked. I was pretty terrible when I look back now, because I keep some old things that I wrote and some old even like pitches. Like when I pitched to a few companies and and I was like, man, why is this HR lady not getting back to me? And I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is a terrible email. Jeez. and so it's really pulling ourselves back out and really looking at our stuff and saying, like, is this good? And so I think you only get that through time. Like, even I think always in the moment that you're gonna feel like I should have this now, or I want this now. But I think things work out how they're supposed to work out, which is hard for me to say because I want everything yesterday.
Dude, you are hugely introspective. I mean, it is. It seems like something that is built into your every moment. I mean, has that been a natural thing, or is that just more of like a progression with all of the different things that you've kind of been building up in your life?
Yeah. So I'm an only child, and so I was always alone, and I pretty much just listened to music and had books and played video games, and it just became a part of me. And then I don't know. That's a pretty good point to think about. Yeah, it's a pretty good point to think about but I don't know. I guess I gravitate toward like philosophies and that kind of stuff because I like to get to know myself. And I did 6 months of like therapy a few years ago, and that was really helpful. It was really helpful for me. And so, learning how to write things down and then looking at that and being like, that's weird. Is this true? And just questioning like our thoughts and our beliefs and like why we think this way. And, for me, what I discovered was a lot of it wasn't even my thoughts. It was like conditioning just from growing up at places and hearing other people say it. And I just naturally adopted it and didn't even question it. And so, yeah, it was just like this big journey. And so I think that's the benefit that's why I like to, set aside at least like 2 hours a day to study and read. It's just because like, I really want to keep evolving.
Yeah. And you are your product. So
yeah,
it makes sense, for all the people that are building businesses, that you have to spend that much time on evolving and modifying and making necessary pivots and making sure that your product still speaks to your audience. And for you, that's you, so that's really cool. What would you say, put aside the stuff that we've kind of already talked over, but what would you say, how have you become so successful? I mean, it all seems like it happened for you pretty rapidly. Not that you didn't put in a bunch of time and effort in the grunt work, but what would you say, maybe a couple or even one of like the biggest tools for you and how you've been so successful and how you become this, published on Inc. and you're mentioned in all these different platforms and you are definitely growing and rising and being, receiving some huge exposure just throughout the industry.
Yeah, it's I kind of knew my end game from the start. And so what I mean by that is I kind of knew what I was doing all this for. And I pretty much tried to create a character of, picture my existing self of who I am right now. And then looking across is like the person who I want to be, but there's a gap in the middle and I got to figure out how to get over there. And I have to see what kind of traits I needed, what kind of skills I needed. And then I just researched my ass off and learned and just cut off everything else of what I wanted to do. So in this instance, what I mean by that is like, I knew I wanted to write. I knew I wanted that to be a big portion of my career and journey. So I read a lot of books. I looked at those publications a little bit just to get a little bit of the language. And then I just repeatedly practiced and kept practicing and practicing and then just publishing and publishing. So like a lot of my articles on like my blog and stuff haven't been, especially my first blog, which is not up anymore. Like it wasn't that popular. Like it wasn't that popular and still not to me. But what that did is it gave me practice and it made me become a professional. So like I knew like every week I'm going to publish something regardless of if anyone looks at it or not. So for me, the first thing is like getting the mindset that I am a professional. So to me, I was already a person where I'm pretending like I have millions of people reading my stuff. I have millions of customers waiting for me. Even if I didn't have that in the moment, I needed to get in that mode because it was very easy for me to revert back to my old self because there's no entrepreneurs in my family or anything. And so I was already scared of what I was doing. So I needed to do the exact opposite of that. And
damn.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of ties into your, like you said, your nerdism and having these superheroes, because it's almost like you're creating your own superhero and you just needed to figure out how to actually get there. And you just kind of took your journey and took the steps and created your own process of getting there, and looks like you're on your way. So it's great.
IRL RPG.
and so that's kind of like what I've been doing that recently. I've been reconfiguring some stuff this week as far as like the next journey for me, which is to get more into speaking and talking. So I was scared to do podcasts at one point, just to talk to people. I was scared to do that. And so I just wanted to write and just revert back to that. But I realized that like, if I'm truly serious about like the big visions that I wrote down that I wanted to do, then I need to do these type of things. And I need to get over myself and not make it so much about me, but think about maybe the people that, I can maybe inspire or help. And so that took a lot of pressure off. And plus, in the grand scheme of things, 7 billion people or something like that in the world, people really are not going to care about my problems or what I'm going through. That might sound, that to me, that sounds very freeing because it takes my ego out of the way and it shows that I'm not that big of a deal. And so just go do it. It's just that simple.
So, yeah.
So I'm interested in one and I think this is probably the most important thing that, our listeners will get out of this whole podcast. Like I said, I'm a musician, so I have to know, in Body Architect, your book, I think the most important thing that we all need to know is how indeed can Marvin Gaye help you succeed in fitness and life? I think it's a pressing question that we all must know. Help
Dude,
us out, man.
he's my favorite artist. Yes.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know what he was talking about as a kid when I was playing video games, and like the radio was playing behind me. I was like, man, this sounds so good. And so like I've listened to his albums over 1,000 times, like his albums and stuff. And in that book particular, that story, when he was recording What's Going On, it was very controversial at the time. He's talking about the war, and Motown is kind of like a content factory. It's a very they have a very set formula for how they're going to produce singles at that time. And he's this lover man in nice tuxedos and stuff, but now he's coming with he has a beard, and he's looking a little more homely, and it was very controversial. And he was arguing with Berry Gordy back and forth, and Berry Gordy didn't want to produce it. He wasn't going to do it, but Marvin Gaye kept persisting and persisting and persisting and having belief that this album was going to really change the world. And so I made the connection that when it comes to fitness, you really need to, before any physical proof, before any physical evidence is out there, you really need to have that belief in yourself before it's even visible, and to stay persistent with that. So before any evidence is there, you have to have the belief and the persistence to continue forth.
That's great, man. I'm glad you made that connection. It just shows people that there's parallels in everything that you do, whether it's music. And I think it's funny too that you say, you got the Marvin Gaye playing in the background. Like my parents, they just played Marvin Gaye in the background. They got mad at me for listening to rap. I listen to Marvin Gaye now. I'm like, y'all are crazy. He's saying way more like raunchy things than these rappers ever were. Marvin Gaye he was talking about some stuff.
Dude,
crooner, so.
I don't listen to modern music that much. Like I'm listening to like Marvin Gaye, Earth, Wind and Fire, like John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and it's just, I don't know. I really appreciate the musicality in those songs. They're like playing, they're jamming. I can just feel it.
Different era, man. Like where you just have 7 musicians, a singer, a couple of backup singers, and you have one reel of you got one take to do it, so you better get it right.
Yeah, I liked it. They were very prolific, and this is another thing. Like,
so much passion, just in one take.
Yeah, and I speaking about that, like with the writing thing, when I first started, I was like, I need to produce a lot, and I think it was like Tupac who like recorded albums and stuff in like 2 weeks or so, and I was like, man, Tupac's doing this stuff. I need to think like a musician, and like I need to produce songs, produce hits, because the more you produce, the more singles you hit. One of those are going to take off, and it's going to be the thing that gives you momentum. So so maybe you have 5 bad songs, but then that 6th one is the thing that gives you maybe the record deal. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, I'm trying to talk music lingo now.
Fitness books, dude.
What?
Mind blown.
And
out here you could call it Brotown. So how about what I think would be really interesting after what just happened in front of me, I would love more than anything to hear your workout playlist.
Oh, dude.
Because
it's gotta be just popping with jams. Like I can't even imagine. What does your workout playlist sound like?
Funny enough, it's NWA, Ice Cube.
Let's go.
Let's see. Who else is on there? I have a little T.I. when he was good, when T.I. was like killing it. That reminds me of college.
Yeah. Calling him out.
Yeah.
We're putting
No, yeah. I mean, I think he's good now. I don't know. I don't really listen to that anymore. Now, I do have Nipsey Hussle on there. He's very new, apparently. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Nipsey.
Yeah, something about that album. I like it.
Victory Lap?
Yeah, something like
very, very empowering album.
Yeah, I love he's like spoke some things into existence. I was like, I like that, man. It's like, who is this guy?
And you talk about the consummate hustler. Like this dude took his last name and he really had to.
Yeah.
Like if your name is Nipsey Hussle, you really have to live that hustle lifestyle. So people can learn a lot from how he's done his thing as well. And as they can learn a lot from you, and you're taking all these fields and these parallels, and you're bringing them all together in your business and in your message and what you're doing. And I think it's really good, man. So I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, that's the thing. Like when it comes time for the gym, because I'm normally a laid back person, so I need the opposite. So that's why I like listen to that kind of stuff to really like kind of bring out the little more rugged Julian. So,
Absolutely.
Some people that are like always amped up, they probably need the opposite, and they probably need something to bring them a little down.
I listen to podcasts while I work.
Oh, I don't know how you do that.
I feel like I need to focus a little more. And also, I go to the gym at like 4:00 in the morning. So it's 4:00 in the morning listening to like trap music. Probably not the best thing. Do that on my commute and that gets me up for work.
Yeah.
You guys' dad hustle is so on point. Like, holy moly. I'm up at 6 and I'm like, where's the coffee? Like,
but it's kind of fun though. Doesn't it feel good though to like, hustling and pursuing something, it just feels good. You don't feel like average. You're like, yeah, I'm going after some shit here. Like I'm not like these other people. I don't know. It just feels good.
Yeah. There's something definitely primal about like creating something from nothing and just hustling and actually like getting results from it is when it actually becomes like really addictive. But
yeah. And for us, our results is our audience. I mean, it's ourselves, but it's also our audience. So like we're selfish in that we get the benefit of both things. We get to improve ourselves and we hopefully get to improve the lives of the people that are here with us. So
yeah, I love the podcasting medium. Like that's definitely something that I'm going to look into for myself because it just seems like a really cool way to meet people and to also provide a lot of value and cool stories to people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's, like, I don't know how many podcasts you go on, but there's definitely a lot that I know that a lot of people would love to hear your story, just like we have in all the different perspectives, especially in the fitness world. There's a lot of really good ones out there that you could reach out to and then start your own. I always tell people, start a podcast. It's so easy now. Just do it.
Add something else to your list of stuff that you do every day. It'd be perfect.
It'll give me a break. It'll give me a break and a way to channel creativity in a different form than just writing an article and stuff.
Just knock off 1 hour sleep a day.
I can't do that because if I have a low amount of sleep for a decent time, I'm a douchebag, and so I'm very difficult to deal with. So like, I can't do it.
It seems like you've got the sleep stuff down, and I think everybody's got a lot of value from this episode. Just because, like, I know, like, I'm gonna try and go to sleep as fast as I can after this episode. Now,
like, why are you already packing up?
I'm packing up. I'm like, okay, guys, But Julian, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know it's late over there, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. We're already about an hour. We did an hour to this thing. That's crazy.
Time flew by.
You got your book. Where can people find your book? Where should people follow your stuff and find out more about you and everything you do?
Yeah, the home base. So you can just go to theartoffitnessandlife.com and you'll see everything there. I'm making some new stuff now. Like I'm making a new book, like a book to give away. I'm calling it the 10 Commandments to Limitless Energy. So it's very simple and to the point, but I think it's 10 principles that, that will really help you. And these are the same ones that I use. So I'm finishing that up. And then, I'm doing a lot of other random stuff. I send random emails throughout the week with hopefully some inspiration. So like tomorrow I'm talking about cheating. I'm starting to think off about asking people, have they been cheated on? And then it was a song. It was, it was songs I was listening to about cheating. It's like, yeah, cheating. But then it's like cheating on your goals, cheating on yourself. And so I'm going into that.
Wow,
so
very interesting. Well, that's really cool. And, just for the listeners, you can find all the stuff that he's talking about on the episode page at 5o'clockhustle.com / what are we going to slash it? How about
can I at least be Quincy Jones? Let me be Quincy Jones. Let me be Quincy Jones because Quincy Jones for some reason, like I have his autobiography here. He's like the coolest guy, apparently. Like, he knows everyone. He's worked with Sinatra. He's worked with Marvin Gaye. He's worked with Michael Jackson. It's like, who is this guy not worked with? And how does he know so many languages?
Mhm.
Like, I'm struggling with just one, and this guy knows around like 20. I don't even believe that. I really need to meet him so I can like test this.
Yeah, he's a master, man. I always tell people, you know, when they think about getting there, and I know we're wrapping it up, but when people always say, you know, yeah, you know, I'm 20 and my thing hasn't gone off the ground, blah, blah, I always say, he didn't make Thriller till he was 50. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
you got time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got time.
Work on your craft. And
He's like a cheat code.
yeah, exactly. The Quincy Jones cheat.
But that doesn't mean wait till you're 50 and then do it.
Right, exactly.
You got to grind the whole way.
Work on it the entire way, and then one day you get your opportunity to meet Michael Jackson.
All right, yeah, but like back to wrapping this thing up. It's gonna be 5o'clockhustle.com/Julian Hayes, just so everybody knows.
We'll do it. Yeah.
But again, thanks for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun having you on,
Yeah.
and we'll have to have you back on once you had a kid and you really know what it's like to sleep.
Yeah.
Awesome. You'll be the first podcast I reach out to.
Excuse me?
You'll be the first podcast I reach out to.
Okay, cool.
And maybe
cool.
after you release that book you're working on too, we love to do follow-ups when you've hit a new milestone or new goal in your career.
Yeah,
So
this would just be a new opt-in book that people, when they can go to my site, that they'll be able to get. It's
Very cool.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch either way.
Yeah, sounds great, man. This was like one of the more enjoyable podcasts because it's very fun.
We
Very
appreciate
fun.
that. Make sure to tell the other crappy
We're leaving
podcasts
this
you've been
in.
on. No, okay.
Drake, do not cut at this point.
No. We get the benefit. That's our value prop, is that we want to keep it conversational, keep it fun, keep it light, and keep it informational. And you are the perfect guest to have on for that. So again, thank you so much. We're looking forward to following your career, and hope we can keep in touch, and just hope you go get some sleep right now.
Definitely so. Thank you.
Very
All right,
cool.
man. Take care.